Sport climbing quick draws, which ones should I buy? Lots of different types of quick draws here. I'm going to tell you what makes them different, and if you're sport climbing, which ones I would recommend. So this is going to help you buy quick draws and understand how they're used in sport climbing. There's only 3 times that you actually interact with the quick draw. Action number 1, as you climb up a route and you put it on the bolt. Action number 2 is you clip the rope in, and then you keep climbing, you climb the whole route, and then as you're coming down, you will at some point have to take the quick draw off of the wall. And this kind of determines the features that I'm looking for when I'm buying a quick draw. And we're gonna talk about that. To make this easier, I'm gonna draw a little picture of a quick draw. There you go, I'm like Picasso. The fixed gear on the wall is called a bolt, and when you're clipping to it, there's a couple things that help with the quick draw. Number 1 is the size of the carabiner. So it's pretty much just the handling of the actual carabiner that's being clipped to the wall. The dog bone being thicker helps a little bit, but mostly it's about this carabiner being large. Now you can see, compare these two carabiners. This is also a quick draw that I would clip onto a bolt, but it's very small and very hard to get on there. So you can imagine if I'm pumped out or in a really tough route, picking this off my harness and putting it on is gonna take a lot more effort than if I have a big, solid carabiner. So people have different size hands, and there's different sizes that are being sold even with sport-specific quick draws. So in the store, I would practice handling them a little bit and just seeing what works best for you. Size. The other thing that I find impacts this a little bit, really not much, is the type of gate. Personally, I find a solid gate a little bit easier to clip than a wire gate. I don't know why, I think it just hooks my hand a little easier as I grab it, but that might be personal preference. Once again, it just goes back to the handling. So it's wire or solid. I like solid. Size is relative to your hand. So those are the features that impact the first action, which is clipping it onto the bolt. The next action we have is clipping on the actual rope itself. And the things that impact the clipping on and the ease of that are actually crucially important in sport climbing, because sometimes it's very awkward to clip, or you might be pumped out, or if it takes an extra second to clip the rope, you can think about that compounding over time. If you have 10 quick draws to clip and they're all very difficult to clip, that's going to add a lot of time to your route, and if you're maxing out on it anyway, it might make it very difficult. Now, obviously, this is a skill as well. Sometimes you have to clip it with one hand or the other when you're hanging in weird, awkward positions. So you have to have the skill to clip, but there are features on the quick draw that make it easier to clip quickly. And we're gonna talk about them now. So number 1, the dog bone and connection. Kind of pairing these in one. The dog bone is this piece of nylon or webbing or spectra, whatever is connecting the two carabiners. And it can either be very thick like you see on these sport climbing quick draws, or like these alpine ones, it can be very thin. When it's thin, it's a lot harder to clip the rope in because it just spins around a lot more. And then also this little connection here at this spot in the carabiner adds stiffness, so it's easier to clip. So that's one of the main differences here between a more alpine lightweight quick draw and the sport climbing quick draw. Dog bone stiffness, the width makes a huge difference, and also that connection stiffness. And as you whittle down the weight, it becomes more flimsy, basically. When I first started, I was like, oh, I need some really, really lightweight quick draws because I'm such an alpine dude. But I wasn't in the alpine that much, and I ended up just struggling clipping quick draws for a long time because of that. So wide and stiff. Talk a little bit more about clipping of the rope because there's a few other things. So obviously the size of the carabiner, once again, is going to make a difference. I could use examples, but the smaller the carabiner is, the harder it is to clip. Size. I haven't actually found one that's too big for my hands, but you know, people might have smaller hands. One of the bigger features on the rope clipping carabiner that makes a difference is the gate itself. Now there's a few different versions of a gate. These are like the main 3 differences here. The 2 on the left are called solid gate carabiners. The one in the middle is a bent gate, and the one on the right is a wire gate. Bent gate has been, from my experience, the easiest one to clip. So that's something to look for. Usually costs a little bit more. Okay, the last action that we want to assess our quick draw based off of is taking it off of the wall. When you're taking this quick draw off of the wall, boom. Seems simple when you're just standing on the ground, right? If this is under tension, which sometimes the rope is clipped to it, and on the way down, taking it off the wall, sometimes it has a ton of tension on it, and it's really tough to unweight the quick draw, so you end up kind of quickly trying to pull it off. There's a couple different types of carabiners that are used here. I'll show you 3 different types. This is type number 1, type number 2, type number 3. So one with this little notch can be difficult to take off because the notch can get hooked up on the bolt as you're pulling it off. So that can be kind of annoying. Sometimes there's a little hood on the notch, so it prevents it from getting hooked up on the bolt. So it's able to have the lightweight features of a wire gate, but it mitigates for that exact thing using that hood. For sport climbing, I would recommend just don't have a notch on them. That's basically the last thing that I look for. No notch. Last couple little things before I wrap up this video. There's a couple different types. A lot of the lighter weight ones are for when people are trad climbing or climbing bigger routes and have a lot more gear on them. If they have 12 quick draws that are big and burly and heavy like this, on top of all their trad gear and maybe their big wall gear, it gets very heavy very quickly. So when you have a lot more gear, weight per piece means a lot more, and you're usually in a bit more stable positions. So clipping can be easier in those situations, not always. They can sacrifice a little bit of dexterity and agility for weight because they just have so much stuff. So that's why these lighter ones exist. And then there's this last one, which I actually take a couple of these sport climbing usually, especially when I'm going in new areas when I don't know how the route's gonna be. And these are called alpine draws. On a sport climb, I take up the same amount of quick draws as bolts, +2. And usually I try and take up just the sport climbing draws to be able to fill that quota. But I'll throw a couple of these alpine draws on if I can't see the route or it seems really wandery. Because when you're climbing on a route, I'll show you what these do. These extend out so they're a little bit longer. The reason that these quick draws even exist, just in case you care, is because if you are climbing, say this guy climbed up to here. This is his little belayer. He put a quick draw in here. So this is his rope. Every sharp turn and the sharper the turn that the rope takes as it's moving through quick draws is going to add what's called rope drag to the system. So the rope is going to be harder to pull up or climb with underneath you. So it's going to be adding rope drag. And the zigzagging creates that. This guy who used alpine draws, say the draws are in the same place, but now they're extended out. You can see by using alpine draws and extending the quick draws closer towards the middle of the climb, there's a lot less zigzagging going on with the rope, and that allows the climber to have less rope drag, which especially on some big wandery routes, they call it wandery if it goes back and forth a lot, it can make a huge difference. So having a couple of alpine draws for these situations on your harness or just in your bag in case you see a route has, even if it's one bolt that's way out to the side, if it's comfortable to clip and you can just extend it easily, having a couple alpines makes a big difference. I didn't have them for the first 2 years I was climbing, so they're not like super essential. They're helpful, and if you move into more advanced climbing, you definitely use your alpine draws a lot more. Boom, that's quick draws. Hope you guys learned a lot. Just trying to share everything I know on the internet with you. So hopefully you liked it. Peace. We have a platform where a bunch of climbers who are learning to climb outdoors are sharing information with each other, and also videos like this are just a bit more organized and you can kind of learn what you want to when you want to. So if you want to join that community, depending when you're watching this, I don't know what it's going to look like, but the link is probably in the bio or description or wherever the heck links go on this social media platform. So look around for that if you want to join. Peace.